Grizz Nation, welcome to another Grizz Game Day update. I'm Kelcey and I'm joined today for the first time. I'm so excited to have him on. Eric Nehm, live from Milwaukee. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Good. The Grizzlies take on the Bucks today at 7 p.m. here at Fedex Forum. It ends their longest homestand of the season. They're also on a 6-game win streak. This could make it 7. It could also even out the Grizzlies Bucks all-time head-to-head. They're 1 up on the Grizzlies right now. It's 26-25. I'm going to start with the injuries, as I do. The Grizzlies have no one, except for everyone who's been out. Like the Danny and Dez are both out, but they've been out. So those, right, I feel like don't count. The ones that I'm looking at for the Bucks do count, and they make a big difference. Joe Ingles is out and Drew Holiday is out. Drew Holiday has given Ja some tough games in the past. How is that going to change the way that the Bucks come in and defend Ja?
Yeah, I mean, Drew Holiday is obviously one of the very best defenders in the NBA. So it is a massive deal. But the Bucks just played the Warriors, and Jevon Carter has kind of stepped into a much bigger role here in Milwaukee.
Legend Jevon Carter.
That is correct. And he's stepped into a much bigger role this year, and he's really been good in it. And he literally, for 94 feet, as anyone who's ever seen Jevon Carter knows, that's how he plays basketball. It's pressure all the time. He just did it to Steph Curry for 30 minutes the other night. And he really, I'm not going to say he gave Steph problems, because it's Steph Curry and you don't give Steph Curry problems, much like you don't actually give Ja Morant problems. But you can make it more difficult on him. And Jevon is very, very good at that. He's great defensively. So honestly, I do think you have the strength with Drew Holiday that Jevon just doesn't have, because they're not the same size, but Jevon will be all over Ja. Like that will be a super fun matchup to watch, because I know with Ja's jumper, teams don't tend to be all the way out there on him. They're trying to give him a little bit of space. That's not Jevon Carter's thing. He is up in your business all the time. So it will be really fun to kind of see how Jevon tries to go about that. But I would guess it'll be Jevon Carter on Ja Morant tonight.
So I wasn't here for like the Jevon Carter era of the Grizzlies. I know his mom still lives here, so I know it's going to be like Jevon Carter night. And it's interesting to hear you say that he is like all up in everyone's business, because Ja is fast. Like, yeah. Will Jevon be able to stay in front? Like, Ja had this quote on ESPN the other day, and he said, MFers can't stay in front of me, when they said, like, why can't people, like, why can you score? Why can't people guard you? Is Jevon Carter one of the guys who can't?
Yeah, I mean, you're introducing all sorts of problems when you do pressure Ja Morant. I think that's where it gets interesting, because Jevon isn't someone that is very good at staying away from people. He really likes pressuring people. That is his thing. 94 feet, he's going to be in you. I think part of that pressure will be trying to deny Ja Morant the ball to start possessions. If he can go out of his way to make sure that he's on Ja before the possession even starts, and maybe make someone else bring the ball up the floor, that would be a win, I would say.
Okay, you're talking about a guy in the Bucks who is like the 94 feet defend in your face guy. I'm going to talk about our guy, and that's Dillon Brooks. I would say most likely he takes on Chris Middleton tonight, because the Bucks have like an all-star duo in Chris Middleton and Antetokounmpo. The Grizzlies, though, have 2 guys who are in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. So my assumption would be Dillon Brooks on Middleton. The last 3 games that Chris Middleton played against Dillon Brooks, he shot in the mid to low 30%. I mean, he still averaged 16 points, a little under what he's averaging in the season. But what do you like about that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, with Chris, the big thing is always that people tend not to be quite strong enough for him and not quite long enough for him. And Dillon Brooks can be both of those things. He is, like you said, someone that really likes to be physical, really likes to get up into guys. And Chris tends not to get sped up. He tends to just kind of play at his own pace, be under control, and just kind of do his thing. But Dillon Brooks has made it hard for him in the past. And I think that'll be kind of interesting too, because Chris is still just coming back off of his left wrist injury that kept him out for the first 20 games of the season. He's still, you can kind of see shaking some of the rust off. There will be moments, there will be, 3 or 4 possessions in a row where it's like, oh, that's Chris Middleton, the 3-time All-Star, the guy that scores 20 points per game, averages 5 assists, 5 rebounds per game. And then there'll be other times where you're like, that's the guy that hasn't played in 220 days.
The Bucks are second in the East. I think second in the whole league, like record wise, I think, right? And the Grizzlies are tied for first in the West. Like either way, this game is going to be good. The last matchup I want to bring up before we talk a little bit about like team stuff is Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jaren Jackson Jr. That one, like these guys have played each other before, but Jaren is a new Jaren this year. He is on a tear.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of the few guys in the league that will be able to be strong enough and quick enough to stay in front of Giannis. And
long enough. Giannis
long
is
enough.
huge.
This is true. But Jaren, I mean, in the past has given Giannis some trouble with that quickness, with that strength, being able to, step in front of one of those Euro steps that Giannis has and draw a charge. And there's so few guys that are quick enough and strong enough to actually be able to do that and not get themselves in foul trouble. And Jaren is one of those guys that has been able to avoid that. So it will be really interesting to watch those two go at each other, just because with Giannis, as every coach will tell you, it's not about the one-on-one matchup. It is about the team defense, building the wall, making sure that you have help defenders there. And no one knows that better than Taylor Jenkins. This is a guy that used to be on Bud's staff. He is in Milwaukee for years with Giannis. He knows what it's like. He knows how good Giannis is. He gets that, I think, better than almost anyone. So it's always fun to see the coaches around the league that have spent time in Milwaukee then get their chance to shut down Milwaukee, because they know exactly how Giannis is going to try to attack. They know how Bud's going to try to do things. So it'll typically, you're going to have like the player matchups. The coach matchups are always fun too. This is someone that spent a lot of time with Bud and knows Mike Budenholzer really well.
That is interesting to think about, because he talks about this still. He learned so much from being under Bud, and he's in Bud's tree. And then to now go against him as like one of the best teams in the other conference, that is a good point. That's a little spicy in itself.
Right.
Okay, Eric, my last thing before I let you go is let's talk about team stuff. So the Grizzlies on offense are number 1 in the league in points in the paint. They're 3rd in the league in fast break points. The Bucks kind of the opposite in that they're not super great at either of those things, but what they are good at is on the I mean, sure, their offense is great too, but on the defensive end, they have the highest defensive rating in the entire league. How can the Grizzlies score? How can the Bucks defend? Like, what does this actual team matchup look like? Because they play very different basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think they end up taking a lot of things from each other, but this year the Bucks offense just hasn't been very good. Without Chris Middleton for those first 20 games, they've struggled to score. This isn't something that is normal under Mike Budenholzer. They've been, I think, at lowest top 8 offense, but typically a top 3 to 5 offense. So they've always scored points incredibly efficiently. A whole lot of them. They push the pace. They do all those things that you mentioned the Grizzlies doing. They haven't done it this year. Their offense just hasn't been quite as good, quite as sharp. They're still working on that. But defensively, that is where they've really focused this year. They're doing a much better job taking away the 3-point line. That's something that they've struggled with, despite being an elite defense for all the years under Mike Budenholzer. They used to struggle taking away threes, and the Grizzlies are really going to test that. They like getting those threes up early in the clock on the fast break. Literally all the time that they like getting threes up. So they will test the Bucks and their newfound strength of not giving up the 3-point line, but really it's about what they do at the rim. And that's why I think this will be really interesting. You mentioned the points in the paint for the Grizzlies. You have Brook Lopez leading the league in blocks, either per game or just overall. He's averaging close to 3 blocks per game. He's 7 feet tall, 280 pounds. Everyone sees that mountain and says, I want to climb it. And typically it doesn't work. You get to the summit and Brook Lopez is still waiting for you. So Ja Morant's going to want to do that. That is going to be a fun toy where Ja's going to be like, I want to climb that. This is going to be really fun. So you have that. But then also, by the way, you have the 7-foot pterodactyl Giannis Antetokounmpo sitting around on the backside waiting to do this exact same thing. And that's really why the Bucks defense has been so strong over the years. You have Brook Lopez sitting there waiting at the rim, and then you have Giannis flying around the floor doing all the things that makes Giannis so special. The Bucks have been really locked in defensively this year. That's where they've been winning games, because the offense hasn't been quite as good, but defensively they're really in a good group this year.
You are amazing. Thank you for coming on today. I'm excited for this matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be a great one. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Grizzlies fans, it tips off at 7:00. Make sure you get to Fedex Forum early, because there is a whole bunch of giveaways today. I think it's a flag, Bally Sports is also giving away posters. So get there early, be safe, stay warm. And if you're watching at home, you can watch it on Bally Sports Southeast and the Bally Sports Plus app.